More competent contractors needed. No more thermal scanning beginning tomorrow and MOH to target 70% vaccination for Pikit Sarawak. I'm Hari Zainuddin and this is TVS Nightline. In order to be able to meet the projected increase of electricity and road access demands in the rural areas, more competent contractors are needed in executing the rising utilities development projects initiated by the Sarawak government.
There must be registered, mesti competent person, and then there must be a fully trained, certified electrician. So maknanya kerja-kerja penyambung elektrik ini mungkin tidak sama dengan kerja-kerja lain lah. Kita mesti ada bilangan yang mencukupi lah untuk melaksanakan tugas yang lebih lagi di kawasan luar bandar lah.
He said this after a work visit to Sarawak Energy Berhad SEB for the first time after holding the position as Minister of Utilities and Telecommunications on Thursday. July, he acknowledged that there are delayed projects but none were abandoned. Therefore, more competent contractors that willing to be located at inland areas are needed to help realize Sarawak's target to supply 100% electricity for the people by 2025. Meanwhile, Sarawak Energy Berhad Vice President for Rural Electrification, Dr. Chen Shun, says that under the LF project, 7,000 households has been electrified, while another 5,000 are in implementation phase.
For a lot of things. Currently, we have 90 million ringgit. We have spent almost, I would say about 60 million is ready to be paid out.
However, Dr. Chen says that the 90 million ringgit allocated by the federal and state government is expected to be insufficient and needs to be added in the near future. In the same development, July, he said there are currently 98% of electricity supplied throughout the state.
Overall is 98%. Rural coverage is 96.5. 96.5 in the rural areas. So we are short about 4%. So we are targeting to get it achieved by the year 2035. The 4% is very challenging, depending on the number.
The Sarawak Electricity and Power Supply Project continues to beef up under the COVID-19 pandemic recovery phase. July, he also acknowledged that Sarawak Energy continues to make huge investment to modernize the power system in the state.
Vaccines given to individuals, especially those at risk, is based on the results of a clinical study. Therefore, Deputy Chief Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Sim Koi Hian urged the public not to be influenced by the spread of misleading news about the COVID-19 vaccine. Commenting further on the matter, Dr. Sim said that the government has always done its best in protecting the welfare of the people.
YB said the AEFI is adverse reactions, and the adverse reaction is so small, and people has to be really, no doctors want to give you more trouble. We love you, we want to protect you, rather than we want to cause more trouble for you. So please don't listen to all the fake news. Please believe like the doctors. No doctors want to give you more trouble and later on way to treat you. But if you don't receive vaccination, right, and then you get sick, it gives us more trouble in the hospital.
Dr. Sim, who is also the advisor of the State Disaster Management Committee (SDMC), said that vaccination is the main component in combating the virus outbreak. In fact, the Sarawak government has continuously worked with related parties, especially the Ministry of Health (MOH), in realizing the success of the vaccination program.
And I want to thank the Jabatan Kesihatan, Jabatan Pendidikan. The most important is the KKA, YBKJ, Dr. Asmi, for really working very closely with Sarawak government and we do whatever we can, because we know that vaccination is a very key component in our war against COVID-19 in living with the virus. And we need to do that.
Dr. Sim said so after visiting the National COVID-19 Immunization Program for Children, or PICITS, vaccination center at Batu Kawah Health Clinic on Thursday. At the same time, he also called upon the parents to be responsible and ensure that their children are registered for the vaccination.
Now, a total of 18,301 children aged 5 to 11 years old, or 4.1% of the group in Sarawak, have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine as of yesterday. Deputy Health Minister Dr. Noor Azmi Ghazali said 40% of the country's children population who had received their first COVID-19 dose were from the state. As such, he said the Ministry of Health Malaysia MOH has targeted 70% of children in the education system to receive the COVID-19 first dose within 2 months of its implementation.
Jadi KKM mensasarkan 70% kanak-kanak yang layak ke dalam sistem pendidikan dapat diberikan dos pertama dalam tempoh 2 bulan. Dalam tempoh 2 bulan ini. Dan dari sekarang dah 80% dari mereka diberi dos pertama lengkap dalam tempoh 6 bulan pelaksanaan. Sebab apa hari ini kita memfokus kepada PPB sekolah. Yang saya akan buat satu PS, satu press statement lagi esok setelah CITF-C akan bermesyuarat esok.
Dr. Noor added that the government and MOH are very concerned about the safety of children and took the first step to implement PICITS because the study proves an effectiveness of up to 90.7%. He said although the effects of COVID-19 infection on children were not serious, the government was still concerned and urged parents to register their children on the MySejahtera application to get their vaccination.
Malah adalah lebih bahaya kalau seseorang kena COVID daripada diberi vaksinasi. Kesan sampingan daripada vaksinasi ada sangat-sangat kurang. 86 juta rakyat di kanak-kanak di Amerika, di US telah diberi vaksinasi, hanya 11 yang dapat myocarditis umpamanya. Dan itu pun semua sihat. Semua dah beri rawatan dan sihat. Jadi saya nak sarankan pada semua rakyat Malaysia, jangan bimbang, jangan takut, malah kita patut rasa terpanggil dan bertanggungjawab untuk mendaftar secepat mungkin anak kita sebagai dependent dan menunggu panggilan appointment daripada MySejahtera ataupun kanak-kanak yang akan diberikan di PP sekolah. Saya suruh semua dengan penuh tanggungjawab kita lakukan ini demi menyelamatkan anak-anak kita.
Apart from that, Dr. Noor also commended the Sarawak government's effort in implementing PICITS earlier than other states in Malaysia. Meanwhile, the number of children aged 5 to 12 years old that are eligible for PICITS is 286,000, which is 10.1% of the total population in Sarawak.
Thermal scanning before entering the premises of educational institutions under the ministry is no longer mandatory. The Ministry of Education Malaysia MOE has declared that the removal of the mandatory use of thermal scanners to scan body temperatures from the Standard Operating Procedures SOPs effective February 11.
However, all teachers and implementation group members, service workers and visitors are still required to scan the QR code through the MySejahtera application before entering any premises registered under the MOE. Meanwhile, as a safety measure, parents or guardians are requested to ensure that their children or ward is in good health and asymptomatic before allowing them to attend school sessions. MOE said the health status of students while at school will be monitored continuously to ensure that students with symptoms are isolated in isolation rooms for further action. At the same time, the ministry also recommended that this ruling also apply to all educational institutions that are not registered with the MOE.
The newly established community social support centers in Sarawak would have positive impact towards social problems and community welfare. The first of its 9 centers established in Kuching will provide social services, support, and interventions for disadvantaged, vulnerable, and marginalized communities.
Di Sarawak setakat ini, kita belum mempunyai satu pusat rujukan referral center, and then tempat di mana sokongan boleh didapati dan juga intervensi sosial. So yang bersepadu sifatnya. We have of course done by this NGO here and another NGO over there, another place and so on. So scattered. So what we want to establish is almost like a one-stop center which will provide you sistem sokongan dan juga perkhidmatan untuk intervensi sosial yang bersepadu dalam komuniti bagi menangani masalah sosial yang dihadapi oleh masyarakat berisiko dan terjebak.
The centre will accommodate the homeless, victims of domestic violence, those with mental health issues, families affected by substance abuse, and any other social issues and problems. Fatima noted that the project is an initiative under the 12th Malaysia Plan through the Social Development Council. Similar centres are being planned for Sibu, Bintulu and Miri, for which sites have been identified, as well as for Lawas, Muka, Siraman and Kapit in the near future.
Ini merupakan komitmen kerajaan kita. Komitmen kerajaan TVS kepada agenda of social inclusivity, di mana tiada sesiapa pun left behind. No one is left behind. Dalam usaha kita untuk mencapai status negara maju dan pembangunan yang seimbang menjelang tahun 2030.
The Ministry of Women, Childhood and Community Wellbeing Development has partnered with Elika Sendirian Berhad for the project whereby the latter has offered its premises at Jalan Abel to house CSSC Kuching without rental payment for 5 years.
The government is committed in developing its agricultural sector by cultivating innovative knowledge, skills and competitiveness. As such, the Agriculture Facilitation Fund for Tanjung Manis would be distributed fairly in assisting farmers in Kuala Rajang and Semop to have better yield of their crops.
Pada tahun 2020, setiap ahli parlimen telah diberi peruntukan sebanyak 1 juta lah untuk input pertanian. Tapi dibahagikan kepada dua kawasan adun saya, iaitu adun 42 dan adun 41. Jadi untuk adun 41 seperti yang saya katakan tadi 500,000 dan jumlah yang pada hari ini adalah 92,000. Jadi saya haraplah kepada penerima yang berjaya, peserta yang berjaya, saya haraplah bantuan ini akan membantu tanaman mereka, hasil usaha mereka dalam memajukan lagi tanaman.
Meanwhile, the remaining 418,000 ringgit allocation is expected to be dispersed in few months' time.
Ada lagi untuk tahun ini baki berjumlah saya rasa lebih kurang 418,000 lagi. Ini dengan jumlah peserta, banyak lagi peserta. Berapa jumlah peserta baki? 21 orang lagi. Jadi untuk tahun ini. Jadi ini akan dibuat kemudian lah apabila bekalan-bekalan ataupun daripada supplier akan sampai kepada Jabatan Pertanian di sini. Jadi untuk jumlah tersebut sejumlah 418,000 bakinya nanti akan diagih pada selepas inilah mungkin dalam beberapa bulan yang akan datang apabila bekalan sudah mencapai.
The state government acknowledged the needs of the farmers as various approaches has been made to facilitate them.
Itu pun saya bawa dia untuk cuba-cuba dia lah kalau dia minat. Untuk serapkan dia ke masa tu kan ada pemilihan untuk masuk ke Wakil Sarawak.
Kali ujung-ujung cuba pada ringan las-las. Ya jadi minat sampai dia tu.
Seboleh-bolehnya semua masuk anak-anak. Daripada saya bapak dia masuk powerlifting sampai anak. Kalau boleh lah.
Kalau tak membawa saya ke sukan powerlifting ni mungkin saya tak tahu dunia sukan.
随4位不同舞蹈背景的舞者，体验沙劳越当地传统文化、美食和舞蹈。在这一集中，我们将去到士龙门的Kampung Gumbang，体验比达友传统文化。舞者们能在一天结束前学会这比达友传统舞蹈吗？让我们敬请期待。
This weekend, TVS TVS brings you a star-studded romantic comedy from the 1980s Hong Kong. The story follows a college graduate Paul who strikes up an acquaintance with a beautiful Monica at a subway station. He also met another girl, Anita, who immediately admires and has a crush on him. Anita tries every possible means to win Paul's heart, but Paul has fallen in love with Monica too deeply. Monica, meanwhile, has her own love affair issues that complicates a lot of things. How will this young love end? Don't forget to watch Leslie Cheung, Maggie Cheung, and Anita Mui in Behind the Yellow Line. Saturday, 12 February, 8:45 p.m., especially on TVS Channel 122, Astro, and My TV.
Welcome back. The growing populace and the increasing demand for food supply have stimulated the adoption of smart expertise for agriculture. Hence, Sarawak is expected to witness a healthy development and produce possible development opportunities for locals to tap into the profitable market in the near future.
The agriculture sector is one of the enablers of the state's post-COVID-19 development strategy to generate high income for the rural communities in Sarawak by 2030. Minister for Modernisation of Agriculture and Regional Development, Datuk Sri Dr. Stephen Rundi Utom said, to realize its goal, the backing and cooperation from the private sector is needed. He said this when attending a briefing session at the Permanent Food Production Park, TKPM, Rampangi, on Wednesday.
So, to me, when I look at the potential, it is not impossible. So, we have to work hand in hand with private sector. Private sector and public sector working collaboration and so on is very important. I feel this is something new to me. I've been in utilities for 13 years. To me, it's quite straightforward, technical. But this one, I have to manage from A to Z, including human being. The most difficult management that we need to do is to change the mindset of the people and change the way, the culture they do things. The moment you're able to do that, of course, you have to entice them with a dollar and cent, the outcome, the product. Once they know that it means money in business, everyone will be motivated to do so.
After evaluating the success of TKPM in Rampangi, Rundi pointed out that his ministry are looking into establishing more of such facilities.
This is the one that we want to duplicate later on. So it's very costly. Capital investment is not cheap. So we make sure that we're able to get them.
Also present during the briefing were the Assistant Minister of Agriculture Modernisation, Datuk Dr. Abdul Rahman Ismail, Assistant Minister of Regional Development, Martin Ben, Menred Permanent Secretary, Datuk Edwin Ebit, Sarawak Department of Agriculture Director, Dr. Elvin Chai Lian Kwet, and General Manager of Sarawak Land Development Authority, Sing Mandao.
The Ministry of Education, Innovation and Talent Development, MEITD, paid a visit to its counterparts, Ministry of Higher Education or MOHE, in Putrajaya recently. And among the matters discussed were the issue of visa application for foreign students studying in Sarawak, technical and vocational education and training, TVET, and institutions of higher learning, and the collaboration that can be carried out with the central government at the Sarawak level.
The delegation was led by Sarawak Minister of Education, Innovation and Talent Development, Datuk Roland Sagawi Ind, together with Assistant Minister of Talent Development, Datuk Francis Harden Hollis, Assistant Minister of Education and Innovation, Dr. Anwar Rapai, Permanent Secretary of MEITD, Datuk Kamri Effendi, and other officials. Datuk Roland Saga and his entourage also paid a courtesy call to the Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Datuk Sri Dr. Adam Baba, in Putrajaya, Kuala Lumpur. The meeting was for further discussion related to science, technology and innovation that can be developed and explored by Sarawak. Besides that, among the agenda that was given emphasis by MEITD are programs that can be implemented in Sarawak and the steps to commercialize the products that have been developed. At the same time, during his visit to Talent Corporation Malaysia, the main focus of the meeting was to find out more about how Sarawak can manage and coordinate talent development in the state. Talent Corp Malaysia, represented by its Group Chief Executive Officer, Thomas Matthew, welcomed the arrival and the relationship between the federal government and the Sarawak government.
A ship captain was rescued while 2 crew members are still missing after the ship laden with heavy machinery capsized in Sungai Serdang in Serike shortly before midnight yesterday. Cebu Fire and Rescue Chief Jangan Muling said the ship's captain, identified as Muhammad Dola, aged 66, was rescued by villagers at approximately 8:30 a.m. today.
A local villager approached to help when he noticed a Dola waving, seeking for help near the riverbank. Dola was then brought to Serike Hospital for further treatment. Meanwhile, according to the victim, his missing crew members' identities have yet to be identified. A search and rescue SAR operation have been carried out by a team of rescuers from the Tanjung Manis Fire and Rescue Station and the Sarawak River Board at 9:48 a.m. today, covering a search area of 5-kilometer radius from the scene. However, the SAR was halted at about 2:30 p.m. due to heavy rain and will be resumed tomorrow.
Now, continuous heavy downpour since Wednesday afternoon had caused a rapid rise in water volume and velocity in Kampong Gayu, Padawan, causing the structure of a bridge at the village to collapse by the strong current. According to a spokesperson from the Sarawak Fire and Rescue Department, or BOMBA, the incident occurred at 8:51 p.m. last night due to high velocity of overflowing waters from a nearby mountain.
In addition to demolishing the bridge, BOMBA further stated that the rising water has also caused 2 houses inundated by 2 feet high waters. The incident caused 13 families to be cut off from the main road, with several houses damaged by mud and water. However, no injuries or fatalities were reported, and the water level has reduced significantly when monitored by rescuers on Thursday.
Hai, saksikan saya Azwan Kombos bersama dengan Tony Yusof dalam rancangan Tony Lapar, eksklusif di TVS di saluran 122 Astro dan juga MyTV.
Hai, siapa kata makeup artist boleh jadi host? Kini Tok kami dah bagilah host. Jadi kepada anda mesti nak tahu rancangan apakah? Jadi kami nak nunjuk dengan kita orang rancangan apa yang kami jadi host. Kepada anda di rumah, kami Odin Syam dalam rancangan yang terbaru di TVS. Kedai kita hashtag kami jual, kita beli. Love.
Dalam kita membangunkan aplikasi yang memberi kesejahteraan kepada negara, ada yang menyalahgunakannya. Sejak kebelakangan ini, terdapat peningkatan ketara dalam penyebaran maklumat atau berita palsu yang boleh menimbulkan kekeliruan dan kegusaran di kalangan masyarakat. Ancaman berita palsu tanpa verifikasi sumber, fakta dan maklumat memberi impak serta implikasi negatif kepada rakyat dan negara. Sebarang penyebaran berita palsu akan dikenakan tindakan undang-undang serta didakwa mengikut Seksyen 505 Kanun Kesiksaan dan Seksyen 233 Akta Komunikasi dan Multimedia 1998. Denda maksimum RM50,000 atau penjara tidak melebihi 1 tahun atau kedua-duanya dan juga denda selanjutnya setiap hari kesalahan berjumlah RM1,000. Bersama, cegah berita palsu. Sebar fakta, bukan dusta. Tidak pasti, jangan kongsi.
Thank you for staying with me. Now, the Royal Malaysian Police PDRM have detected a new modus operandi or MO of an online fraud syndicate resulting to major losses for fraud victims. It was believed that the syndicate rakes in thousands of ringgit just by providing a link that is similar to a legitimate e-commerce application or an online streaming site. Federal Commercial Crime Investigation Department JSJK Director Commissioner Dato' Muhammad Kamaruddin Muhammadin said most victims were scammed by advertisement offers on social media.
Interested buyers will then contact them via WhatsApp and be instructed to download and install an APK file containing a fake application on their mobile phones. Once the application is downloaded on the victim's phone, the application will then take over the existing SMS system. The scammers will then instruct the victims to register and enter their personal information, including their online banking details.
Dan seterusnya, bank akan menghantar biasanya TAC ataupun OTP kepada mangsa bagi tujuan transaksi. Yang mana saya sebut tadi, pihak sindiket skamer telah pun ada maklumat kebenaran untuk akses SMS ini. So akhirnya sindiket ini, skamer ini memperoleh semua sekali. Dan mangsa cuma akan sedar apabila dapati duit dalam akaun dia berkurangan.
To date, police have received 5 fraud-related reports, 3 of which were in Johor, while 1 each in Penang and Johor, involving a total loss of nearly 60,000 ringgit. It was believed that the syndicate is operating their crimes within Malaysia, and efforts to track them are underway.
Cebu Crime Prevention and Community Safety Division Chief Deputy Superintendent Arifin Bahar said his team will continue to monitor the situation around Cebu Town for the upcoming Cap Gomeh to ensure that there are no excessive use of fireworks.
Kalau sekadar main depan rumah kemudian untuk ahli keluarga saja dan tidak membahayakan nyawa orang lain atau benda, kita akan bagi budi bicara lah. Tetapi kalau diorganize betul-betul satu perumahan tu sampai bermain sampai sejam ataupun setengah jam, bermain mengapi yang lama dan tidak dikawal dan tidak diselia dari segi keselamatan dia, kita akan ambil tindakan.
He added, uncontrolled fireworks is an offence that carries either 7 years in prison or a fine up to 10,000 ringgit.
Yang mana sekiranya didapati anda memiliki, menjual dan bermain bunga api yang tidak dibenarkan, sebab bunga api ini ada kategori yang dibenarkan. Yang tidak dibenarkan adalah menjadi satu kesalahan dan diboleh ambil tindakan di bawah atas tadilah Bang Letupan 1958.
Now, despite the Hajj pilgrimage being postponed due to the Omicron variant, Lembaga Tabung Haji has proceeded with its preparations, taking into account the current pandemic situation and developments. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dato' Idris Ahmad, said, so far there are still no changes despite the increasing number of cases around the world.
Last year, the government announced that it will continue to bear Hajj subsidies, although the cost is expected to increase, following changes in the standard operating procedures SOP for Hajj worshippers to perform in the new norms. Furthermore, the price increase is guaranteed. However, it will not burden the pilgrimage. It is expected to increase to more than 30,000 ringgit compared to 24,000 ringgit before, but the pilgrims need only to pay 9,900 ringgit.
And that wraps up TVS Nightline for tonight. Once again, I'm Hari Zainuddin. It's been a pleasure.